I firmly believe that resale is one of the great fashion frontiers that every brand is going to embrace. We should all be thinking second use, third use. Luxury is having a future for the planet. I think we all have to understand we have a role to play. If every single person thinks they are not the problem, nothing happens.
I'm Paula Wallace, president and founder of the Savannah College of Art and Design. For over 4 decades, SCAD students have found inspiration and mentorship from the leading creative voices that visit our university. Now we're sharing these experiences with others who are drawn to the creative life. Welcome to On Creativity. Vanessa Friedman is an acclaimed writer, editor, commentator, the all-seeing eye of fashion journalism. As the iconic fashion director and chief fashion critic for the New York Times, she is the arbiter of what to wear and when to wear it. We recently hosted Vanessa at SCAD Fashion Weekend, where she took in the senior collections through her sartorial lens. Vanessa, you're on campus at a meaningful time, the SCAD Fashion Show. It's an honor to have you here.
Well, it's a pleasure to be with you, Paula, as always.
Fashion is often the gateway for consumers seeking a luxury lifestyle. And here at SCAD, one of our degree programs is actually luxury and brand management. I know our students would love to hear what you think they should keep in mind about the luxury mindset in order to best serve them in their paths in this degree. You know, because fashion is just really probably a tiny part of that entire lifestyle.
There's like lots of definitions of luxury right now, right? There's the market definition, which is purely a kind of company category created by the stock market and by investors. There is the traditional definition of luxury, which has to do with, connoisseurship and elitism and inaccessibility and often extraordinary materials and handwork. And then there is increasingly the kind of contemporary definition of luxury, which can be time, independence, freedom, the ability to make your own schedule. And I think for students, you have to almost put all those things together and think of it that way. Like, what does it mean? It can mean almost anything you want it to mean, as long as you imbue it with those values.
Wellness and health are very important, and philanthropy is very important, education is very important. Take into consideration the full person.
I mean, luxury is having a green environment around you.
Exactly.
Right? Luxury is having a future for the planet.
Yes.
All of those things. And that's one of the reasons you see big luxury companies as defined by the stock market, like LVMH, who, now own hotels, they own cruise lines, they do beauty, they do drinks, they do anything that is sort of can touch a person, they consider part of their landscape.
I'm glad you had the chance to spend some time in our SCAD classrooms and studios. What did you think?
I mean, the facilities here are incredible. But what's so exciting to me actually is in the sneaker minor, seeing the kids playing with Oculus and playing with programs that the companies are just beginning to use themselves, so that when they graduate, they can actually come in with a skill set that no one else has. The most valuable thing in a job market. I always say I talk to a lot of kids who are in school who are like, I want to get in fashion, I want to get into journalism, I want to do this, what should I do? And I'm like, bring me the thing I don't know how to do myself. Tell me the thing I don't know. Tell me what's coming, and you just clearly prepare them for that, which is a skill set on your part.
Preparing students for what comes next in the industry is our mission here at SCAD, and our minor in sneaker design gives students yet another way to manifest their creativity into a career. After all, fashion and style are all about making statements, and right now the freshest statements lead feet first. When did sneakers and casual footwear first go chic?
Well, according to Mr. Mac, your sneaker guy, who I asked the exact same question to. It started with the Chuck Taylors. And the idea that you could wear sneakers not just for sport, but in fact to say something about who you were as a person, what your identity was, what your value system was, and that, what maybe one particular style or pair of shoes started has now spread to, I think, every aspect of footwear, essentially, into all of our closets, onto the runway, into every store. It's a phenomenon. The idea that Nike is now the biggest apparel company in the world is an absolute reflection of that.
It is, yeah. And you do see people wearing like a very chic suit, but some kind of sneakers.
You saw Serena Williams at the Met Gala in her Versace gown at the top of the stairs and her sneakers.
That's great, yeah. So while I have you here, Vanessa, if you were advising on our curriculum, what would you say is the next big thing that we should consider?
I firmly believe that resale is one of the great big fashion frontiers that every brand is going to embrace very soon, in the same way that, like, in the beginning with e-tail and online selling, most luxury brands were kind of scared of that and didn't want to touch it. They would hire Yoox or they would hire Net-a-Porter to kind of do their back office and handle it for them. And then gradually they started taking control of their own e-tail. And now, of course, like, you can't imagine a luxury brand that doesn't do its own e-tail, except maybe Chanel a little bit. Mm-hmm. But I think resale is going to be the same thing. So right now, they'll sell on the Real, they will sell on the runway, but my guess is, like, in the next 5 years, every big brand is going to start wanting to control the second life of their own garments. Mm-hmm. And they should. Mm-hmm. We should all be thinking second life, or second use, third use.
And then it's verified too.
Exactly. The data, I think, is incredibly useful, because you think about it, like, wouldn't you like to know as a brand how long someone used, a product for? Like, was it only a season? Did they keep it for 10 years? And then say, okay, what should we do with it next? Traceability. I'm intrigued by the trend of limited edition collaboration collections. What's the benefit to co-brand, and how do they avoid diluting their own brand? Well, marketing is the biggest, right? And access to a new market. If you have someone who is a Nike customer or a Birkenstock customer, they're not necessarily a Manolo customer or a Dior customer, and vice versa. Mm-hmm. You combine the two, and suddenly you get to speak to a whole group of people who might not have really thought that you were relevant to their life in any way before. So it gives you access to a much larger potential consumer base. It gives you access to the values attached to the other brand, which is often, if you're a luxury brand, on one hand, you got the sort of the quality of the materials, the work that goes into it, the inaccessibility and elitism of it. If you are a sports brand, you are cool. A streetwear brand, you have the cool factor that luxury brands generally don't have. So you kind of cross-pollinate. We're in this weird moment where, despite all the talk about sustainability or responsibility or the need for fashion to make less, fashion is just making collection after collection after collection, drop after drop after drop. And, if you're a creative director, you only have so many ideas. So if you team up with someone else, you get some of their ideas, and then you get to make a new thing. So I think part of it is just driven by this seemingly boundless appetite for new stuff.
Even with these limited runs, the wider fashion industry represents $1.7 trillion globally, and too many of these clothes go from the closet to the landfill. Recent stats show fashion generates a significant percentage of total waste, some 92 million tons a year. What are some of the challenges fashion still faces to avoid being wasteful and seemingly dismissive of environmental impact?
Fashion makes too much stuff, period. There is too much stuff.
Affordability and access are how so-called fast fashion companies have built empires. They specialize in going from sketch to wearable piece in practically the blink of an eye. Some of these companies have new styles dropping daily and at attractive price points that encourage consumption.
People have been trained into a pattern of overconsumption that is bad. There's a lot of demonization of fast fashion and all of this, and I think, certainly it has played a role in it, but, I genuinely believe that, like, fast fashion initially came from a good place, right? It came from the desire to give everyone access to style at any price point they could afford, right? And to me, that is a good thing, and I think people should have access to style. And that somehow has gotten kind of Frankensteined into everyone should have access to new stuff at any moment in time. And that is not a good thing. And it has, moved far out of fast fashion into every level of fashion. But I think we all have to understand we have a role to play. I mean, I was talking to a luxury brand executive the other day, and he said, of a very big company, he said, well, actually, our contribution is, less than 1%. It's tiny. The implication being, like, you really shouldn't be bugging me about this because it's not, I am not the problem. But if every single person thinks they are not the problem, nothing happens. Right? Every single person has to take responsibility for whatever their tiny little part of the problem is.
Let's talk about the metaverse, which right now is sort of an ultimate fashion playground and certainly not wasteful. You've written about fashion in the metaverse, and I'd like to hear your thoughts on how designers approach virtual collections.
So I think they approach them in two ways, and it probably depends partly if they are a young designer or a student or an established designer. Established designers tend to make virtual versions of their real clothes. And the idea is to reach a new audience and maybe drive them into the store so they would buy the real thing as well as wanting to buy the virtual thing. Because, yes, it can satisfy an urge to buy a new garment if you buy it for your avatar or you buy a skin for yourself, but it is not priced in the same way and it is not going to feel the same. So it's not really a replacement. Some people are suggesting it could be a replacement for real fashion, but I don't actually think that's true. But the younger designers or the purely virtual designers, because there are people who have graduated and now only run virtual stores, they're making like the kinds of clothes that you could never wear in the physical world. So like, shoes that burst into flames and dresses that become whole gardens and bloom and, sort of extraordinary garments. And they say that the kids who are buying their clothes, that's what they want. Like they want something that is an alternative to the constraints of gravity and the physical world.
Maybe that's a new major.
That definitely is a new major.
Vanessa, thank you for your insights today. I've read tens of thousands of your words over the years. Your work elevates fashion in a very erudite and thoughtful way. It's been a pleasure talking to you today.
It's been an honor.
Thank you.